COVID-19 pandemic came into play, there was an aspect of course, there was a loss, lockdowns, and tourism. There were limited visits, limited travels. Flights were cancelled of the different tourists. So there were the tourism, the sector was literally in like a grave of some kind of sort. But then after the COVID-19 pandemic, a recovery is expected, and there is a coming back. But now Ebola shuts down the possible comeback. But then we want to understand what is the way forward for the tourism industry. But before we get there, just a brief preamble of where all this came from. Let's take a look at a report here that says that before the COVID-19 virus found its way, that's in Uganda, the tourism sector was registering a steady rise in forex earning, that's from tourists. And according to the annual report, the annual tourism sector performance report for the financial year 2018-2019, that's a year before the pandemic, revenue rose from 1.45 billion US dollars. That was in 2017 to 1.6 billion, that's US dollars. That was in 2018. And now tourism was Uganda's leading forex earner, that's for the economy and society, bringing in 1.6 billion, that's dollars, contributing about 8%, that's to the country's gross domestic product. And over 500,000 jobs were created by the sector. So imagine 500,000 jobs. Okay, as we continue, the country's tourism had expanded with its contribution to gross domestic product to 8.36, that's trillion shillings. But however, this changed since 2020 following the outbreak of the COVID-19. Foreign exchange earnings dropped, that's by 0.5 US dollars. We are talking about 0.5 billion US dollars, and of course due to the COVID-19 outbreak. And of course foreign visitors dropped by 69.3%. Of course, that's looking at about 1.5 million visitors recorded in 2019, and to about 473 visitors which were coming in after the outbreak of the pandemic. All right, the sector accounted for 7.7%, that's of the national gross domestic product, and 6.7% that's percent of total national employment. That's through creating 600,067 jobs, about that number right there. And of course, with government committing to spend 176.9 billion in the tourism sector, that was in the financial year 2020-2023, the current year we're in. That was the commitment the government had put across to invest in the tourism industry. But then remember, after this, there was a hope of recovery from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. But after that, the recovery has been frustrated by the Ebola epidemic. And with me on set is Mr. Hafsha Kenneth. He's a tour operator, of course, into the tourism sector, running a tour company. And today the discussion, we are going to talk about what is the way forward. And of course, the most important thing, we shall take a look at how was it like before, how was it like after, and how has the recovery been shut by the Ebola epidemic. Mr. Hafsha, you're welcome on the show.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. Thanks for watching Smart 24 TV. My name is Kenneth Hafsha, and I'm running tourism business in Uganda.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm happy to be here on this TV,
yes,
business TV, and glad to be sharing some ideas about tourism sector in Uganda.
All right, so Hafsha, before we get there, let's take a look at the situation. How was the situation like before the COVID-19 pandemic? Paint for us a picture.
Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the business was moving on well. And of course, those who are already in the business, we are making the business and making money. And of course, we had never seen this situation of COVID-19. And when it came, it was like an ambush. And most people just, have a challenge whereby people enter the tourism industry. And then, because they think there is money, though sometimes they forget they have also some roles to play in the sector.
Yes.
So when you're entering any business, as any other business, you have to think of what could be happening maybe in future. In case anything happens, what should I have to do to stand against this. So when this one came, it was like an ambush, and then much of us were beaten in a surprising way that we wouldn't really expect. So, however, those who were so determined were able to go through it, and then the situation is permanent. So, and then it had to move on. Business was not bad because, of course, Uganda, is one of the best tourist destinations we have in the world. We have many people who come to Uganda for their safaris, vacations, and business travels, and some who come for study, research, and many others. So business was not very bad, and we could have at least a lot of bookings. And then, but when COVID came, everything went down. But for those who were so determined, had to, of course, leave the business moving on, and things were not very bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, looking at that particular aspect, now, definitely. So now, when the COVID-19 pandemic came in, there was a down in business. So now, share with us a little regarding how was the experience like when lockdowns were, let me say, removed. How was the show up? How was the turn up of the industry?
Okay, after the during the COVID, we had, before it became so serious, sometimes we used to think it's going to be just a small one, but later we realized it was a serious one for us, because before, when they started announcing the COVID-19, we took it as a joke.
All right.
But later, we realized it was a very serious one. And then after the COVID, after announcing, before COVID actually came here, most people, some of them had already experienced it. And then already we could experience some inquiries. We have COVID-19 in Uganda. Some others will say we want to cancel, maybe others will say we want to postpone the trips. And we want to understand what could be happening.
Yes.
But later we realized after us entering in the lockdown here, with the COVID. So we had a lot of cancellations, and some other countries started issuing travel restrictions to their citizens coming to Uganda or going to other countries. So that's how it went. And then later, after the COVID-19, of course, after lockdown, some of the bookings we had were already cancelled. Others, which would not be cancelled, would be postponed.
Postponed?
Yes. I had myself an experience whereby a group of family members, like 20, had a trip, and then 8 of them died of the COVID-19.
They died of the COVID-19. That was too sad.
Yes, and they had to cancel, because if I have a family and we have to go for a trip in Uganda, you can't tell me that I'll postpone, yet I lost my group members.
Definitely.
So some of them cancelled, others would refund the money. Though as others you could actually explain to, and then you'll be like, well, if we can't come, we can share the losses, and then you can be able to have the part of the money refunded, then the rest can be used. Or maybe if you use the money to do the bookings for us, then it is very fine. Others, they couldn't entertain. They say, first we want our money. And this is a problem in the industry whereby you're running the international business. Once you make a mistake, if I booked my trip and then I want my refund, then you cannot refund it.
And you can't refund it back.
That means I'm going to talk badly about your business, and then you lose the business.
Okay.
Though we don't have to do it in the right way, because we fear people talk badly about our businesses. Honestly, it's not supposed to be like that.
Okay.
You have to know that if once they cannot make the booking, and then you can no longer do the trip for them, you have to refund. Though we have a challenge of some people, we have a weakness whereby some people make the booking, and because tourists, at times they make the booking and then they come some 2 years to come.
Okay.
If someone is booking today, then they are traveling.
They come 2 years. 3 years.
Yeah. I have people who have been depositing the money every month.
Okay.
$200 every month. So they come after 3 years or 2 years. So if it happens like that, you think I'm going to have this money for booking. It's 2 years. Am I going to keep this money with me for the 2 years? Can I invest this money somewhere?
Okay.
Which is very bad. So when COVID came, you cannot retrieve that money, because even the business you invested that money in is not performing well because of COVID-19. So you have to to fight hard to get that money back.
Okay.
So some people were like that, and it was really bad. Though at the end of the time, you have to go through everything again to be able to move on.
Okay.
Yeah, so after the COVID-19,
the lockdowns are removed.
the lockdown is already removed. It was sometimes not easy to convince some people to come for the trips. Because most of the international travelers are so strict that they think even if lockdown has been removed, do you think COVID is really completely down?
Oh yeah, that was quite
Yes,
a great question.
Quite challenging. So in that case, we were able to convince some, others wouldn't. Of course, we have got some other clients who like traveling to high-risk countries. Like someone comes and say, I don't want to go in a safe country. I want to experience that country which is not safe, security-wise and other things. So a lot of diseases and whatever, some of them will be like, whatever it takes, I have to come, no matter the COVID-19. So others are actually coming now.
Yes,
Yes, they're actually coming now.
All right, and that's a very interesting insight regarding that. We are discussing the COVID, of course, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and definitely we are driving back to Ebola to ensure we see to see how the recovery that from the COVID-19 has frustrated the recovery hopes of the tourism sector in Uganda. And of course, quite a lot is really going on, because when Uganda was declared to have Ebola, quite a number of tourists cancelled, of course, their bookings, and of course, some of the farms, some of the tour farms in Uganda had to literally refund back that money, of course, to the tourists to continue and like to refund it back to the tourists and continue with business, definitely. But that wasn't something which was very friendly. I know that is not a good feeling. That's literally a loss in disguise, I would say that. So, Mr. Hafsha, we are still having a discussion there. Let's continue from where you were talking about somebody traveling in a country regarding security-related matters. Yeah.
Yeah, so some clients, it was luck that some of them would not mind about it. Others, after the COVID-19, they think, because we've been in a lockdown, most of the countries have been locked before in the COVID-19.
Yeah.
So that means they've been at home. There's some people who cannot keep at home for a long time.
Definitely, I agree.
Yes, so if lockdown has been removed and then I'm able to move, then be like, I cannot keep at home, no matter what, let me just go out of the house, they can travel. So those ones also are there. So for those ones, we are able to handle them. And others, of course, we couldn't. Others could change the destinations. Yes, if someone was coming to Uganda or Africa, they could go to other countries, because they could always actually find the news than actually before us.
Okay.
They say, Kenneth, I've read about this COVID-19 in Uganda, about this. So how do you think? Do you think it's safe to come? So sometimes you have to go and find out, is it true? Some news that we read yesterday, a client from USA or maybe Germany has been able to know it, and then they just give us the updates.
Okay.
So they are so sensitive about it. So when COVID was removed, the business came to steadily grow up. Again, get back in position. Though sometimes, actually, they told us.
Was there hope?
There was actually hope, and even before the opening up the country from the lockdown, we still had some hopes, because we knew it's going to be open again. Yeah, so we started getting hopes and the business coming back to normal, and bookings started coming again. Though, of course, it wouldn't perform like before. Yeah, and of course, sometimes you could look at the business working in the perspective when you have been, actually, when you've just been able to start up the business. Be like, if I was getting about 10 bookings in a week before COVID, in the COVID, there's no booking. Then after the COVID, you could get 4, 3 to 9 in a week sometimes, because most of them are just fearing to come. However, it has now been getting to normal slowly. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about, because we've been driving it from before the COVID, when the COVID came in, and now after COVID, you're trying to come back, but then another epidemic comes in the country. Because when the news was released that Uganda was declared to be having Ebola, I read a report, tourists cancelling their bookings, and actually some tour companies had to refund the money back to that. So I want to understand, in what way has this frustrated or affected your hopes of regaining back? Let's talk about now amidst the current epidemic.
The current epidemic, Ebola also has got a lot of injuries that's caused to the tourism sector. But to the other way, I think some people have somehow got, to the other side, got used from the experience we got from the COVID-19. Yes. So when you had this Ebola, of course, we knew it was the same case like last time. So this time, some few people are now able to relate to what COVID was, and then they'll be able to know, now, what if there's a lockdown, and what if I have a lot of bookings? I should be able to do this. Because we really learned a lot from the COVID-19.
Let's talk about the lessons.
Exactly. So from the COVID-19, we learned a lot, like knowing how to save. Okay. You know, in tourism, people, like they say out there, tourism has got a lot of opportunities and some good money. That's if you play your part as a business player. So if you have these opportunities come and then you make your money, at times people think, if I make my money, let's say if I'm doing a trip and then I'm earning maybe $1,000 or maybe $2,000 in a trip of 5 days, then that's a good money. Some others are so excited. So time came, you get your maybe $2,000 from the trip. Then you have to, you know, you don't save the money because you think after all I got this booking, so I'm going to get another one. So I can use this money like, you know,
the way you want, you spend it.
And forgetting that your business is supporting your life and supporting itself. So when the time comes and then the country is locked down from the COVID-19, from the epidemic, that means you are going to suffer a lot. So we had that lesson from the COVID-19. If I've been doing my bookings and then I'm not able to stand again from the COVID-19, then next time it should be a big lesson to me. Then also, some people who have the habit of using the money for clients. Client books the trip of maybe after 2 years they have to come, they send you their $10,000 and then you'd be like, let me invest my money in the farm, maybe somewhere, maybe in the other business. When they come, I'll have the money back. COVID-19 comes and then clients are not coming, you have to refund the money. You get? You have to refund the money or else you use the money and then clients come, you don't have the money because you risk investing the other money in the other sectors. Then it doesn't perform well. When the clients come, you have no money. So you have to
have money to cater for them.
Yeah. So at now we really learned. So for the tourism sector, we are not doing bad at this time unless the government says we have the lockdown. Unless it happens, then the only option you have is going into the lockdown. Because of course, due to the from the letter that was released by Uganda Tourism Board, Uganda is really safe for travelers. It's safe for everyone to come and visit.
Lately?
Yes, lately.
How justifiable is that?
You can actually contact also UTB from the website or the office from UTB, but not actually that, but also me from the experience I have.
Exactly, that's what I want. From your personal experience.
Yes.
As a tour operator.
Yeah, Uganda is very safe for travelers because now the Ebola is not everywhere. And as long as you understand the results or the ways you can prevent it from getting to you, or maybe knowing how it's going to be affecting you, you'll be able to stand against it. I'll give you an example. I had the booking 1 week back, and these are the people I had to drive myself for the destination. And I had a booking of Queen Elizabeth National Park and Chiba National Park. It was 5 days. So when they had, actually they told me before I even heard about it, yet I'm already in Uganda, but we had Uganda has Ebola, and this weeks like Kasanda and Mubende have been closed for the lockdown, and that's the road we are going to take.
Yes.
So the thing you have to book the trip. It took me time to convince these people. Because me, I'm at the base, I'm in Uganda, and I've been there before, these places, so I know what it takes. And as long as I know from the authorities that Uganda is safe for travels, then I'll be able to convince these people. So I convinced them, they were actually almost canceling the booking. But all I had to do was to show them that everything is very perfect.
Very perfect.
So the ritual they had to accept was to change the route. So we are going to Chiba National Park. They said, can we either use another alternative to the place or we go to a different destination? So I advised them we go to another place.
Okay.
Go to Elizabeth and then you can track the chimpanzee because they were interested in chimpanzee tracking. So we had to use another place. So besides cancellations, we have to look at other options.
Definitely.
Yes. So Uganda is very safe. If you go to these other places, like if you go to the national parks, by the way, in the wilderness is more safer than being in the cities.
Well,
yes. So these animals are not sick. We don't have any congestion. So you actually, I would advise anyone who is at home there that if you feel like you fear Ebola, just have your way and go for the trip. You be in the national park, then you come back when it's down.
Yes. It is safer to be in the wilderness than to be in the cities. Of course, that's a statement led by a tour operator. We're still discussing the tourism, of course, amidst the Ebola epidemic and how best the tour operators are moving about in such a time. Well, before we wind up, I wanted us to talk about the aspect of, such epidemics hinder foreign tourists. How has been the turn-up of the local tourists? Because we know that Ebola is not everywhere. Okay, if you lose the foreign tourists, because when the foreign tourists get to hear that there is Ebola, they will assume it's everywhere, all over the country. So, and that is understandable. They can cancel bookings. But now let's assess how the local tourists, how have they been turning up, Ugandans coming to visit these places?
Actually, Ugandans, I saw this growing more in the COVID-19. Yes, during the COVID-19 is when I saw many Ugandans picking interest in visiting the destinations. I was happy to see that, and it really made me happy. Though it was just a wake-up call from the COVID-19. Because one, people were not able to keep at home for time. Two, it's when the tour operators now learned that this time now the international tourists are not coming to the country. To the country. So let's convince the locals to come and visit Uganda destinations. So it's when they did. So from then now they learned. So from the COVID-19 is when the numbers became higher. Then at this time they still do the local tourism. So locals are now booking the trips. Though of course sometimes you look at local tourism, though we don't have much money from there, but
they don't bring in a lot of money.
We don't really make business from there, but one, we make a good relationship with the clients, local clients. And two, we have, of course, we grow from there. Yes, and at this time they book trips every time. Yes, they really book every time. At least every week you get someone asking, we have a family of 5, can we go for a trip? So local tourism is not doing bad, and it's good that Uganda Tourism Board and other tourism authorities were able to come up, and then they encouraged. And that's good that most of the destinations, the prices are lower for locals than the internationals. Yes, if we go for gorilla tracking in Bwindo or Mugahinga, you find a gorilla tracking permit is $700 for the foreign tourists coming to Uganda.
$700.
Yes, that's about 2.6 million there. Uganda shillings.
Actually, about 1.8. Two there.
Exactly.
Then Ugandan?
Uganda is paying 250,000 Uganda shillings. Yeah, so chimpanzee tracking, the others pay $200. Ugandans are paying 150,000 Uganda shillings. You see, it's little money to go and experience all that. A foreigner pays $40 per day, per 24 hours in a national park. Then a Ugandan pays 20,000 Uganda shillings.
$40 versus 20,000.
20,000 Uganda shillings. You see, it's about 150 versus 20,000 Uganda shillings. So it's little money. So this is very fair to the locals. So you can even jump on a bus which is 40,000 from here, maybe to Kasese, or maybe 30 to Fort Portal. Then tomorrow you just get your 150, buy the permit, you go for chimpanzee tracking. It's one of the best experiences. So one would always do that.
All right. We shall be returning to share more insight regarding that after the break shortly. Yes, tourism amidst Ebola epidemic, how is it moving? How are the tour operators really moving about regarding this aspect? And definitely, before we get into the break, or after the break, what we should expect is that we're going to be discussing the aspect of technological advancement within the tourism sector, because this is one of the strategies we are put in place to ensure that the tourism industry is revived back to the pre-COVID Yes, and of course we shall also look at the influx of job opportunities, most especially for the youth out there, to ensure that you can actually earn yourself a livelihood, and of course also talk about ways and strategies on how we can boost domestic tourism to increase on the income earnings, because epidemics might never end. They will always keep on, but how best can we stop over reliance on foreign tourists and still encourage domestic tourism to boost revenues? That and more coming up after the break. Good morning.